Remember, everyone, when traveling to a toy show or convention, or both even, always remember, pack the music. We'd play some, but we're not allowed to on this channel. Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here, and we've got a bonus video for this month. We're taking a look at one of the harder figures to find in the Legacy Evolution line, at least from my experience. We're looking at Soundblaster. Of course, this is one of the tiny core class figures. And he is essentially a repaint of the earlier released one of Soundwave. Now, for those of you who aren't quite as familiar with this character, well, we have covered him a bit in a previous video, but we'll go ahead and talk about him a little bit more. Soundblaster was a character from the Generation 1 era, but he appeared in the Japanese series. The rivalry, of course, between Soundwave and Blaster did reach a furied point that in one episode of the Japanese series The Headmasters, both Autobot and Decepticon communicators managed to destroy each other. Their remains were recovered and taken back by their respective factions, and the technology used on the planet Master to help create the Headmasters was somewhat useful in resurrecting the two characters and upgrading their abilities. Soundwave was then rechristened as Soundblaster, and Blaster would be renamed into Twincast, whom we've reviewed earlier in the season. So, that should also explain, for those of you who saw the Netflix cartoon during the War for Cybertron series, as to why it was brought up that Soundblaster and Soundwave look alike, because essentially they are the same toy. Although, when the original Soundblaster toy was released in Japan, it featured a new gimmick. The cassette door and cavity where the cassettes were stored was widened so it would allow for a second cassette to fit inside. The cover was also done up in a trans red color because many of the cassette warriors at that time were coming with a special sticker on them that could be read through the lens here on the original toy, not this one, that showed off weak points for either Fortress Maximus or Scorponok. So, it had that as a nice bonus gimmick. And at any rate, this one's just a repaint of the core class Soundwave that has been released, so it has similar accessories, which we'll cover right now, starting with his missile pod. As you can see, that is very, very small. But it is nicely detailed, so you can definitely tell what it is. And then, of course, over here we have his gun. And back in the Generation 1 day, this little silver part was a chrome piece that could be removed. Funny how the times have changed. Of course, Soundblaster has one other feature, an accessory. You can open the chest cavity. They got the button up here, but it's just for looks. You have to manually open it yourself. And he does have a cassette inside of him. It is one of the Bird cassette figures. This one is Buzzsaw, whereas Soundwave came with Laserbeak. So Soundblaster here has Buzzsaw. So all in all, a nice inclusion. And again, done cheaply, because this is Hasbro we're talking about. They're not going to spend any extra money. They spent enough just making the paint. But at any rate here, let's take a look at Soundblaster's articulation. Since he is a copy of Soundwave, it'll be the same. His head can turn from side to side. You can rock it up and down a bit, but it's more for transforming him than for anything. His arms can be raised out to the side, about so far. And they do rotate at the shoulder all the way. You can bend his arm at the elbow 90 degrees, and it does have a swivel at the bicep. So he has G.I. Joe battle grip. Soundblaster cannot twist at his hips. He doesn't have that articulation. You can spread his legs apart into a full splits. He does have a thigh cut going for him. You can raise his legs up at the hip, only about so far. And you can bend him at the knee 90 degrees. So all in all, a little less articulation than what a standard figure has. Alright, to transform Soundblaster, it's a very simple process. Start by taking his head, you turn it around 180 degrees, and then just fold it down inside this cavity on his back. Turn him around a bit here. So we'll take his hands, we'll fold them into his forearms. Kind of straighten his arms out a bit, and then we'll move them here at the shoulder so they rest against this protrusion on his back. Come down here to his legs, turn them at the thigh so that his feet point outward. You should basically see this silver painted area. Have him do a full splits, and then you're going to bend him backwards at the knee. As you'll see right here, there's a little hole there just above the thumbnail, and it'll attach to this little piece of plastic that's protruding from the side of his chest. Takes a somewhat precise method to get it in. There we go. And then we'll come up here to his feet, and you just fold them inwards. And Soundblaster transforms into something reminiscent of his micro cassette recorder player that his Generation 1 toy was made out to be. Unfortunately, unlike his original toy, the weapons doubled as batteries, and he'd have a spot to stick them in here, but he doesn't have that, but he does have a couple of holes at the sides, and those are for storing his weapons. So that way, wherever Soundblaster goes with the music, he's also prepared for a fight. Takes a little effort sometimes to get the weapons in. There we go. Got one in. Go over here, put the gun in. And there we have it. And of course, you have access to the tape door. So make sure we put Buzzsaw back in there so we don't lose him. And then now we get to my thoughts about it. I'm glad to see that Soundblaster did get released in this small scale. I mean, I kind of predicted it back when I had talked about Soundwave that a Soundblaster one was likely to come. And Hasbro didn't disappoint on that. If there's anything to be really disappointed about, it's more how this supply issue thing is still going on. Because it's getting very hard to find some of these guys, and I ended up having to pay a little bit more because I had to buy him online. None of the stores around here were getting him, and Soundblaster was one I really wanted. So, if you're a major fan of some of the Japanese exclusive figures, this one might be worth seeking out. However, if you're not, or you already have Soundwave on like this, you would probably be just better off skipping out. At any rate, that's my review of the Legacy Evolution version of Soundblaster. I hope you all enjoyed it. And please do remember that if you like the content we feature on this channel, please do like, share, comment, and subscribe. This is Sparkster1701 saying I'll catch you all later.